Just an observation, Mr. Speaker. Just an observation. It will be with you shortly. Mr. Speaker, last week, the World Bank released the results of its rapid damage assessment for Hurricane Melissa. The assessment places Jamaica's physical damage at US $8.8 billion. This figure is preliminary as further technical evaluations continue through the PIOJ. This estimate includes damage to private and public property, insured and uninsured, as well as critical infrastructure. However, it does not yet reflect the cost of relief, that's all that we have been spending on humanitarian supplies, and the cost of recovery activities, that which we have spent on getting the electricity grid, the water grid, and telecommunications up. And it does not yet reflect economic losses that will follow the disruption in key sectors. So, for example, while it accounts for the physical damage of a hotel, it does not account for the loss of revenues from the temporary closure of the impact. Mr. Speaker, one of the most severe and underreported impacts is the massive volume of debris generated by Hurricane Melissa. According to satellite-based analysis conducted by the United Nations Development Program, the storm left over 4.8 million tons of debris across the island. This debris is blocking roads, hindering access to schools and hospitals, farms and markets, slowing relief distribution, and delaying the restoration of essential services. The UNDP estimates that the debris is equivalent to approximately 480,000 standard truckloads, consisting of 2.1 million tons of building and construction debris, 1.3 million tons of vegetation waste, 1.4 million tons of personal property and mixed household debris. These are minimum estimates and will increase as ground assessment continues. Compared to major hurricanes worldwide, Hurricane Melissa now ranks amongst the most extreme debris generating storms ever on record. And there are analyses that are already being done on this, Mr. Speaker, which would compare, for example, the debris generated in Hurricane Katrina, the debris generated in Hurricane Irma, and other hurricanes relative to Jamaica. And of course, there are suggestions regarding the type of building material used, where people chose to live. But there is also another factor which we have not yet assessed but needs to be assessed. The damage went through the cockpit country. And therefore, some of our prime forests were destroyed. The leaves of every tree in the path was stripped and the trees broken. So the devastation of the primary forest has not yet been assessed. So when the satellites are doing the imagery, what they are picking up is a lot of that debris mass, which accounts for why it is so large. In the other areas, the storms did not affect primary forests as the way it has. 51%, I'm told, of our primary forests has been affected. So in other hurricanes in other countries, it has not affected their forests in the way that it has affected ours, our cockpit country. So it's an area that we will have to look at, but it's not the primary subject of today's statement. Mr. Speaker, we must act urgently and strategically to address this unprecedented challenge. It is important to note that at this time of the year, we traditionally launch our annual mitigation and cleanup exercise, constituency-based, in preparation for the Christmas season. Today, I wish to inform this Honourable House that the government has approved budgetary allocations for the National Cleanup Programme, which will incorporate the annual constituency-based mitigation and cleanup programme. $10 million per constituency has been allocated under the National Constituency-based mitigation program. The allocation will be broken down as follows. $2 million for drain and waterway cleaning and vector control to reduce the spread of pests and disease, $5 billion for de-embushing, and $3 million for debris and waste removal. This investment is not only routine seasonal maintenance, it will neatly dovetail into a broader program of cleaning and debris management. Additional funding will be provided to the 16 most affected constituencies across Westmoreland, 3 constituencies, Hanover, 2 constituencies, St. James, 5 constituencies, Trelawney, 2 constituencies, and St. Elizabeth, 4 constituencies. Beyond these parishes, other severely affected communities island-wide will also be targeted. So there is a constituency-based, parish-based targeting, but then we will go more granular to specific communities in other parishes which have been affected. Mr. Speaker, we believe that this is the most equitable and efficient way of using the resources. In other words, we are targeting the resources to the areas of greatest need. This program will employ, just to be clear, Mr. Speaker, this is the program which is our national cleanup program, which represents the additional funding that we are placing on the table. So this program will employ between 100 and 200 persons per constituency. So in the 16 constituencies named, in addition to areas in other constituencies affected, we will employ between 100 to 200 persons to assist with the cleanup. The Social Development Commission will oversee the recruitment, training, and organization of work teams. Our aim is to ensure that all workers are properly documented, are supported to open a bank account where needed, and receive basic training in the safe handling and disposal of debris and waste. This is part of a wider effort to formalize labor, strengthen social protection, and uphold decent work principles even during an emergency. The National Solid Waste Management Authority will coordinate operational planning and work schedules. They will be supported by the Jamaica Defense Force, the National Spatial Data Unit, utilizing GIS mapping to tag and track debris, the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development, and the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce. We are identifying additional temporary disposal sites and exploring recycling and the circular economy solutions, which will include using wood chippers to process vegetative waste and mulch, to process vegetative waste for mulch and compost, establishing structured scrap metal recovery, and recovering reusable construction material, and partnering with private firms to pilot community-level material sorting. These measures are essential to build long-term resilience in waste and debris management. We have also begun securing additional trucks, compactors, bulldozers, and heavy equipment, including through pledged international support. Mr. Speaker, countries that have faced large-scale disasters such as Japan after the 2011 earthquake, Indonesia after the 2018 earthquake, and the United States after Hurricane Katrina implemented debris-to-income programs where communities were paid to sort, recycle, dispose, and remove and to convert debris into usable materials. These programs created temporary jobs, accelerated cleanup, reduced landfill pressure, and strengthened local recycling industries. And Jamaica will follow similar best practices and models, ensuring that our cleanup effort also supports livelihoods and stimulate local enterprise. Mr. Speaker, I should also point out that we are making a special allocation of $150 million. You know what, let me not make that statement, no, having said what I just said earlier. No, the Minister of Finance slipped me a note, and I misread the note. In addition to the allocations for MPs, for constituencies, we're also making an allocation of $150,000 per councillor in each constituency. I hope, Mr. Speaker, that Hansa did not record my initial statement. I'll come to that later. I can't go back. Mr. Speaker, while the government is providing resources, equipment, and coordination, the national cleanup effort cannot succeed without the full participation of our citizens. Every Jamaican, schools, businesses, community groups, church groups, service clubs, and private households must join in this campaign to clean up our space. A cleaner Jamaica is not only aesthetically pleasing, it is safer, healthier, more resilient, and more attractive for investment and tourism. The cleanup we begin today contributes directly to our economic recovery, our public health, and our national pride. Given the scale of the debris, this will take time. Initial operations are projected for 2 to 4 fortnights, after which we will conduct an assessment and expand interventions as required. So technically, we could go under the special national cleanup program for a month to 2 months, just to do cleanup. After that, then we will reassess. Members of Parliament and councillors in targeted areas will receive detailed instructions and guidelines. Letters confirming allocations, that is under your normal routine maintenance Christmas program. You will get those letters by Friday. And for the constituencies that are
Mr. Speaker, as the time for speaking has expired, we ask that the time be extended sufficiently to complete the presentation.
Minister, you have the liberty. PM, you have the liberty.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mike, your mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm finished.
The question is on the floor for the extension of time. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? Ayes have it. You may continue, PM.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm actually at the end. So, members of Parliament and councillors in targeted areas will receive detailed instructions and guidelines. So, letters confirming the allocations will be sent out by the latest Friday of this week. You will probably get them late tomorrow into early Thursday. And for the constituencies that are specifically targeted, those 16 in addition to areas in other constituencies, you will also get your letters explaining how you will participate in the program, how you will be able to recommend persons to work, the assignment of the SDC officers, all those details that will ensure that you are effective in the mobilization towards our national cleanup. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, members, for your attention.
Thank you, Prime Minister. So the normal allocation for road patching that we would normally get, are we to understand that that's not going to be provided this time around, or that you're treating the payments? Yeah, however you feel comfortable. So is it that the payments that we receive for Melissa relief and for the emergency drain cleaning just before, and the housing allocation, is that kind of in lieu of the road patching resources that we would normally expect at this time to fix up roads? Many of us do that in January after the Christmas rush, because it's quite difficult to administer so many programs at the same time in December. But I'm wondering about that, because the roads, there's been a lot of rain, so the roads are in need of patching in the constituencies. So what is going to happen there? In terms of the national cleanup program, the role of the MPs will be what exactly in that? Because you've said that you're going to employ 100 to 200 per constituency in the areas where the cleanup is being done, which are the most badly affected areas. And the SDC is going to handle the engagement and training, you said, of those workers. So do the members of parliament have any role in that at all? And if so, what is that role? Those are my questions.
Thank you, Leader of the Opposition. Let me start with the role of the MPs. I want it to be clearly understood, Mr. Speaker, that the MPs are integral and critical to the relief and recovery process, and there is no attempt in any way to marginalize or to obviate the office of the Member of Parliament. And in every program that we have designed, the office of the Member of Parliament is integrated and connected and contacted. And I want that to be established for the records. We must, however, appreciate, Mr. Speaker, that unwittingly, or maybe by design, we are every day changing the role of the Member of Parliament. The Member of Parliament is becoming less of a legislator and more of a standing office for social work, contracting, construction management. Madam Speaker, this collective body has to be very careful as to how it expands its role beyond its constitutional jurisdiction. And I'm always very sensitive to it, in as much as I am a Member of Parliament, and I say to all, especially the new members of Parliament, I do understand how you feel when you get out into the field and your constituents say, I need help. And if you were to say to them that my role is to go to Parliament and talk, or my role is to go to Parliament or to write a letter to, they're not going to understand that. They're not going to see the value of that. What they want to see is for you to be present with them in the rain, in the storm, as you were when you were seeking their vote. It is the nature of politics. It's not just Jamaica, it's everywhere. But as leaders, we have to be careful how we succumb to certain pressures that change the nature of our government, including how it lessens accountability and transparency. So I'm very sensitive to that. Absolutely. So it's not my intention to use the disaster response to change the nature of the office and function of the Member of Parliament. And I will say this in response, Leader of the Opposition. When we gave, when we made the allocation of $10 million to MPs, there were certain arguments being put. $10 million, this can't do anything. $10 million, and we agree, $10 million is absolutely insignificant to the overall picture. But note what MPs have said. We need more money for transporting the $10 million worth of goods, not to take it out of the $10 million, but we put money on top of that for transportation. Then some members of Parliament have said, we need funds to actually go and inspect the damage so that we can send back the picture. Then some members of Parliament have said, you know, we need staff to manage all of this. In other words, in other words, I appreciate, and I'm not saying that I don't understand the demands. I too am a Member of Parliament. But the office was never designed in the first place to do this. And so either we are going to unwittingly allow it to happen, or if it is the collective mind that it be so, then we will have to sit down and properly provision the office of the Member of Parliament to become a department of the government that delivers service in the constituencies. So it is a reality. So I'm not meaning to open this as a debate, but I'm just pointing out. I'm just pointing out that these are things that, as the people who lead the country, we have to sometimes look above what the public is saying and what everybody else is saying and see what our collective action is doing. Are we leading or are we being led? Now, I mean, it is a debate to be had, leader, of the opposition. It's a debate to be had, but I wouldn't. For this cleanup program, yes, that's what I'm coming to. So in this cleanup program, as in any other, we expect that the Member of Parliament will play a critical role in, one, recommending the persons who will be employed. Absolutely important. So you will be working along with your SDC officers. Number two, that you will be playing a role in identifying equipment that can be used in the cleanup. The NSWMA will be the coordinating body for the trucks and the tractors and the excavators and the power saws and all of those things. So the NSWMA may not know all the equipment that exists within your constituency or in your community. So you will coordinate with them. But just to be clear, MPs are not to get involved in any contracting or procurement matters. I think I have to say this and say it publicly and say it repeatedly. It is not your role. MPs can play a pivotal role in mobilizing the community. Now, when any program is announced with resources, as MPs we know that the first thing that people see or ask is the money and how much you're going to get. But this is a national cleanup program where, though there is a component of pay, there is also a component of service. It is in all our interests to remove the debris from the communities. Let's be clear. There will be persons in communities who are not able themselves to remove the debris. Old persons, infirm persons. And therefore, as you organize the labor force, as members of parliament, you will have great knowledge of your communities as to where the help will be needed. So you can help to guide how the various work teams are directed, where they should go and how they should be deployed. So the members of parliament have a critical role to play, but I'm going to urge you to stay within the bounds of what you are constitutionally required to do. Now, the other question was the road patching. Mr. Speaker, we will not be able to do the road patching as we have done in the previous mitigation program because of one, the resource constraint, and number two, we would not want the NWA's resources to be tied up in treating with the procurement and contracting in other areas where the need is not as great as the 16 constituencies and some other targeted areas. So we have taken the decision to focus the efforts right now on getting those 16 areas back up and running. It doesn't mean that there will not be an allocation. It just means that you won't have the allocation now while this program is going on. Because the NWA will play a critical role in this national cleanup as well. Because remember now, most of the debris would be along their corridor, the NWA corridors and the parish council corridors. And we will need the NWA to help us with management and supervision of the various work teams, and to help us in the reporting of the removal of the debris. Because at some point in time, there will be accountability. There will be monitoring and evaluation. You might hear that, you know, we move 20,000 truckloads of debris, and then, you know, for some reason you can't account for 4,000 or 5,000. We don't want that. We want to be able to account for everything. So we're going to ask the NWA to help us with just managing how accounting for the removal of the waste, tracking, and helping us to understand in particular areas. For example, there might be light poles. Some debris might block gullies. It might block culverts. So we want the NWA to be there to assist the work teams in proper guidance and direction to make sure that everything is done according to what proper civil works codes should be. I believe you had a third question, Leader of the Opposition. That was it? Good.
Member from St. Catherine North Central.
Prime Minister, I am still, over these years, questioning how it is determined that the hilly terrain of North Central St. Catherine and East Central St. Andrew could possibly get the same funding for bushing when this amount by NWA rates and standard would only do about 3 of my main thoroughfares. So I'm not picking on you, but my colleagues as well. Why would I get up in North Central St. Catherine, where the vegetation is so overgrown? I don't know how I could be compared to East Kingston and Port Royal. So I'm not picking on you. I am batting for rural constituencies at this time. The bush are closing upon the cars. The people have nowhere to walk. Down in St. Andrew, is it northeast where Chuck is? Yes, northeast. I think maybe you would probably beautify the curb walls, yes. But we have bush, the vegetation that cars can't pass without crying up the side of the vehicles, and with people not having anywhere to walk. There is no routine maintenance going on, so let's not fool ourselves. The bushing only takes place once per year. And when that happens, it is at a place where it is not manageable. We have to be using equipment to first clear the sides of the road before we can even send men out there to attempt to bush. Prime Minister, I'm appealing to you. Rural constituencies must be treated differently at this time to be able to take care of overgrown vegetation. My second question relates to the movement of funding. I think we have always been able to, based on what our needs are, that we might be able to do some juggling where possible. Please just elaborate.
Thank you. Because we are
Prime Minister, just a minute. Yeah, you go ahead now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for those statements and the question. Because we had cut the program to dovetail it into the national cleanup program, we didn't make the usual parametric provisions where you could make certain changes. But as the program is defined now, I will inform my permanent secretary that I have no objections if a member of parliament were to decide to shift from bulky waste into bushing or from bushing into bulky waste. But there can be no compromise on the $2 million for cleaning drains and waterways, because if you note, it is more for vector control. So you can use this for vector control if you would like. But the threat now is mostly for standing water, where you are having rats and other vectors, mosquitoes. So if we would not allow you not to use that $2 million for that purpose. But you can move between bushing and bulky waste removal. On the matter of the rural constituency, it is a constant point being made in these debates. And more as it is made, I am inclined to consider it. Not as an additional allocation, but as we have, for example, which we debated last week or the week before, with the bauxite levy fund for constituency development. Constituencies, they get a special allocation from that. So there may be ways to craft programs that are specific to rural constituencies for which you would qualify as one, rather than to make a general allocation.
Member from St. Anne Southeastern, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Prime Minister. Just to echo, Southeast St. Anne is the largest, geographically, the largest constituency in the country. And so the issues related to, yeah man, that's true man, you check your thing. The issue of ensuring that we're able to service and deal with the issues with roads, bushing, etc. is critical, and I want to echo what the member said. And thank you for your commitment to considering it. The other consideration which I would like to ask if you would make, Prime Minister, is some flexibility. You said there will be funds coming regarding patching, and so I wonder if you would consider now allowing some of us to be able to access those patching resources earlier than others. And I say this because the roads in my constituency are downright dangerous, and they've been made more so by the hurricane and the waters from the hurricane. But in addition, we have some breakaways, which might be a separate issue, but certainly road-related, breakaways from slippages that need urgent attention. So, two parts to the question. The first is flexibility with the patching resources. Those of us who, in consultation with the NAA, can access and use those resources effectively in the short term, if we can have that flexibility. And secondly, the plans for dealing with the breakaways from the hurricane in constituencies like mine.
Thank you, member, and thank you again, Mr. Speaker. I see that the road patching and road maintenance are matters of concern, particularly for the MPs that are not within the 16. Let me assure the entire Parliament, the NAA presented to the Cabinet a budget for recovery of roads for $35 billion. We were not able to allocate $35 billion all at once. We settled on an allocation of $5 billion. That's what we could see our way to fiscally. And in that $5 billion would be allocations for patching up roads, minor and major repairs. I'm not sure if we did anything for
Prime Minister, please. It is now 7:20. House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the time being 7:20, I ask that the House be allowed to sit beyond 7:30 to complete the business of the day.
The request is on the floor. Those in favor? Those against? Ayes have it. Prime Minister, you may continue.
So we could see our way fiscally, and members, allow me to just engage you for a few minutes. Please bear in mind that revenues have fallen, expenditures by virtue of what we need for relief and recovery. You would have heard the Minister of Energy explain the demands on the government, even things that we did not budget for, we have to now put them in place. So it's a delicate balancing act to ensure that we don't end up in a financial crisis as we are responding. So every demand that is made, we put it through the lens of what is fiscally possible. Now, what is fiscally possible is also determined by how efficiently you spend the resources allocated. We can make allocations that are not efficiently used. So we have to look at what is the spending capacity of the entities that we are giving the resources to. So when it comes to road patching, for example, if we were to say, fix all the roads, say we're going to fix all the roads in all the constituencies, and then in addition to that, spend more resources on the 16. You know what the biggest problem was? The member, my sister from St. Andrews Southwest, who stood up in Parliament last year and complained that you have allocated, what was it, $40 million, but I can't get anything done. And why could you get that $40 million spent? Because it had to go through procurement and then contracting and all kind of long process, tying up the NWA staff. Note, we haven't made a budget to increase the staff of the NWA. We haven't taken on more people, it's the same staff. So even if we're making allocations, we also have to think about how the allocations are going to be spent. So these are just some of the considerations. So what we have done is to look at the entirety of the roads that need to be repaired, give priority to those that are in the worst damaged areas, which I think we all agree that that's the sacrifice we have to make. But at the same time, as soon as we have gotten those roads underway, then we can look at the others. So we're going to treat all the roads in Jamaica under the emergency procurement because they were all affected. But the emphasis, because of the resources that we have, will be on the roads that are in the most affected areas, and then we will come back and deal with the other roads. So we have allocated $1.5 billion for patching. Note that last year, when we were impacted by the heavy rains after Beryl, we allocated $2 billion for patching island-wide. So we have allocated $1.5 billion. Note as well that out of that 5, we have already spent, because we have cleared almost all the roads. There are only 15 roads that are still blocked. And of that 15, some are blocked because, as you mentioned, landslides and slippages and waterlogged, which we just wouldn't be able to address those. So we have already spent in clearing that. As I speak today, all the roads you can drive on. There might still be some bush on the side of the road, but that's what the National Cleanup Program is designed to do, and that's why we'll work in coordination with the NWA and the JPS and NWC to make sure that we're not interfering with the civil works and the road furniture and the critical works that are along those roads. And that's the coordination of the National Cleanup Program. So I put the MPs at ease. You will have your roads attended to, but from a procurement and contracting perspective, we want to get those 16 constituencies off very quickly, and then we'll be able to address the others shortly. So I would say that by late January, early February, we can start to patch, which would ordinarily be about when you would be able to spend that $10 million anyway. The overall coordination of the National Cleanup Program is the NSWMA. Yeah. Oh, the 10 million, right. So the usual. So the bulky waste is NSWMA. The cleanup and the management of the drain cleaning and so forth, vector control, that's NWA working with your Ministry of Health. So remember now, if you need to do vector control, contact your local Ministry of Health personnel to assist you either with baiting for rats or treating water or any of those activities that you would normally do in terms of ensuring that any standing water is not an environmental threat.
Member from St. Andrews Southwestern.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have 3 quick questions. The first one is really a very simple one. Prime Minister, you mentioned an allocation to councillors, which seemed a little bit minuscule. I suspect that they will be hearing more about a program for the councillors. That's one. It's 3. I don't know if you just want to take the 3. Okay. So just to make sure that as a former councillor, I'm not here and not paying attention to that. So that's one. The second one has to be, Prime Minister, you spoke about government having discussions with the SDC and so on, and giving instructions for the inclusion of the members of parliament and their role. The question, Minister, Prime Minister, is whether or not those recommendations are going to be in writing and clear, and whether or not that similar approach cannot be used for the distribution of relief as it relates wider than just this in this post-Melissa recovery and all of what we're doing. Because it isn't happening now. It isn't. That's 2. Remember I said 3? Right. So now, the third one, I mean, Prime Minister, is just very simply, I would imagine that government has been having discussions with external sources about debris management based on what you have said is the volume of debris that Melissa has left with us. Are you ready to update us, or are we to expect any more detailed update further on?
As it relates to the allocation for councillors, the revenue impact has also negatively affected local government revenues right across the island. So what we have done here is in consideration of the fallout generally for local government. I'll leave that burden on the Minister of Local Government when he comes to speak to see what other allocations he can make from his already dwindling resources. But if it can be topped up, I'm certain the Minister will do that. As it relates to the instructions, we will make the effort to put them in writing so that the officers are aware that the members of Parliament have been prescribed specific roles in supporting the National Cleanup Program. And then your third question is about debris management, right? So yes, we are actually in touch with other entities. And you would know that we have brought in, I asked the UN Secretary General for support in the management of disaster, the logistics of management, and he kindly sent a team in addition to sending a Jamaican, you might know him, Ronald Jackson, who is an international expert in this. And so this is part of the conversation going on about how to manage this debris. What we have done here is from our side, meaning from the executive side, is the financial allocation. And how can we multiply the allocation? So meaning that instead of just paying trucks to remove the garbage, how can we get the people who are removing the garbage understanding about debris, introduce recycling and separation and these other things. So whatever expenditure we're doing, yes, it's about relief from having the garbage, but it is also about making the community stronger. That yes, you see this garbage, but plastics can be recycled, metals can be reused, and we want to get that kind of notion into the community. But we also want to take advantage of this period to rebuild community spirit, to get people to come out and clean their own communities. So that's the idea behind the expenditure. So it's not merely an expenditure, it's about multiplying the value of what we get from the expenditure.
Member from Portland Eastern.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Prime Minister. Prime Minister, I crave your indulgence because I don't want to sound repetitive. had a conversation with the Minister of Works, if I'm saying that, yes, in terms of preserving roads at this time. So if we don't have exceptions to the rules in everything that you've outlined, we may find ourselves in a situation where we're spending more to preserve roads that we just previously spent a lot of money to repave and construct. For instance, I can think of one road in Bellevue, that's in Fellowship, Portland. The top of it was done, millions of dollars spent, and the bottom of it. In the middle of it, there was no works done. So what you have is the road actually deteriorating, the unimproved area going into the area that was improved, and between the road and the drain. The conversation that I spoke about is the practicality of you'd have to spend money to even dump the spaces so that it doesn't actually disintegrate further and start to destroy the other road, the new road. So my question then is, will there be an exception to the rules where it is identified? Because I know you outline the role of the MP, but if we are on the ground and we're seeing particular things to preserve the status quo while we await the parishes that are affected, we may find ourselves with a higher bill. And so before the next part of it is certainly the parishes that are situated similar to mine that I would have heard my friend speak about. The drain cleaning exercise is also one of road preservation. When the debushing part of it and the drain, you have drains, gutters that are like drains on those expensive roads. If they are not, if the debushing and the drain cleaning isn't working in tandem, what you're going to have is that the road itself is then destroyed. And so there are situations where, notwithstanding what's happening with NWA, and I heard it's practical, but the preservation is going to be almost as if we're going to find ourselves with a new problem and a more expensive bill. And so there was a complaint because in my constituency, I've had to take the decision to simply get marl and shingle, that I'm now learning that there's a different quality, and NWA is telling me you need to stop because the quality of the marl is not good. No, I'm just bringing that out to say that the practical solution, which rightly the minister would have advised me, is to, if you can stop the gap, you're going to have to do that. But how long can I afford to do that in a private capacity while we wait? And so I just needed to consider that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just listening to the Member of Parliament, I can see his passion and the genuine desire of wanting to help. And just reflecting that when I became a Member of Parliament, I may have taken the same posture. But I'm sure that your senior colleagues over there, as I read their faces, would be saying, he will learn, he will learn, he will learn, he will learn. But remember, when we sit here and make the rules, we are not intent on breaking them. But when exceptional circumstances are brought to our attention, we will have to address them. The provisions made to members of Parliament, and let me say this, and I have to be the one to say it because you're going to face your constituents who will tell you, the Prime Minister allocate $5 million to you, to your constituency. Fix all the roads. The funds that are allocated to members of Parliament are not meant to replace the functioning ministries, departments, and agencies who have the budgets to actually deliver the service. The allocations that are given to members of Parliament are there for them to be able to respond to urgent, critical, welfare and health and other critical social needs and some infrastructure needs. But the Member of Parliament is not the Executive Director of the NWA or the Managing Director of the NWA. He's not the Supervisor of Works. I have to say that and say it clearly. Now, I know some of us want to pretend as if we are, because that is the way you win votes. But it is setting you up because you will not be able to fulfill the demands. I need to just say it in your protection, member from East Portland, and for all MPs. So, if you have said you have brought it to the attention of the minister. I just had a word with the minister. There is a process. These things, if you bring them to the attention of your NWA parish manager, or I suspect that road is a parish council road, that you bring it to the superintendent of works in the parish council. Those matters would then funnel up into the larger budget, and then the decisions are made as to how the larger budget is allocated to what is a priority. All right?
Member from Eastern St. Thomas Eastern.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Prime Minister, I heard you mention some special areas outside of the badly affected areas. I want to crave your indulgence this evening. There are two areas in Eastern St. Thomas. Bath, where the river, contrary to what persons are saying, that persons build their houses on the river banks. The road is the Copper Lane area where the river undermined the road. And it's in a very, very dangerous way. The last hurricane, the motor vehicles were washed away. Houses have been undermined. And persons are traumatized, because they have nowhere to live. They have to be here, there, and everywhere, living with family members. Some of them, the convenience is not proper. So I am asking for special consideration for the Bath Copper Lane area, where the river washed away vehicles and undermined the structure. Also, Rowlandsfield, where there is a breakaway in Rowlandsfield, very, very dangerous, Prime Minister. It happened from Beryl, and it has worsened since Hurricane Melissa. So those two areas I'm asking for special considerations.
Mike, Minister, Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm taking that this will be the last question so that we can wrap up. But you mentioned, member, special communities. We're going to be driven by the ODPEM data as to the areas that were affected. I suspect that Bath and the area that you have mentioned would be considered in the cleanup effort. But it seems to me that you're suggesting that it is more than just the cleanup that you need. I take note of that, and I will, through ODPEM and the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, ensure that the proper assessment is done, a report is given, and we see how best we can respond. Questions were raised about breakaways, and I didn't answer them. Now, just to be clear with the breakaways, the NWA is in the process of assessing the breakaways. I have seen that there are members of communities who are saying that they are taking matters into their own hands and trying to create pathways on unstable soil. I can only use this platform to advise members. I am the first one to encourage and support community initiative, but trying to construct a pathway on a landslide or a breakaway is very dangerous. The NWA, as I've said, they have done assessments. And there are two issues that we have to consider, which the public should understand. Once there is a breakaway, the alternative is to either bring the road inland, which would mean in some instances, or most instances, going through private property. We would have to acquire that. That takes some time. Or if we decide that it is feasible to restore the breakaway, which is usually a very expensive undertaking for civil engineering. So it is not something that I can tell you that it will be corrected overnight. So if there is obviously no alternatives, there's no alternate route, then we will have to move there very quickly to provide access. Right? But if there is an alternative route, or an alternate route rather, I would encourage persons to use the alternate route rather than to risk going through the breakaway or the land slippage.
Member from West Central, St. James.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Prime Minister, are you aware that members of Parliament have experienced great difficulty in sourcing equipment in the immediate aftermath of the hurricane and are still experiencing that difficulty, and so it may impact that role of identifying equipment for the cleanup work? Firstly. Secondly, can we get an indication of what equipment has come in through international aid in the disaster response process? And thirdly, whether any mulching machine or other equipment that can assist with the biodegradable vegetation has come in or can be sourced to expedite the cleanup.
So I'm aware of the shortage of equipment. So if there is a general shortage, I'm certain that MPs are going to find it difficult. There is a notion that we have a lot of trucks, and as we pull from the regular trade, it is going to impact construction, agriculture, transportation. So we have to manage that very carefully. What we have done, we have made an allocation of $200 million to acquire equipment locally so far. I don't want to say too much about what we have started to procure, but we have started to look at tipper trucks, which are locally, which we can get out of the local supply here, brand new, and chipping machines, wood chipping machines. We have started to look for those. There are not many in the local trade because you need the industrial heavy-duty types. We have asked our partners to supply excavators, heavy, what they call it, D9 bulldozers, compactors, water trucks, and we have sourced water trucks here locally as well. So yes, we are trying to source what we can here locally, and we have asked our international partners to also supply. What was the other question? I think that's it, bro.
Mr. Speaker, we have another statement by the Prime Minister.
Prime Minister, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is my honor to report to this honorable House on my recent participation in the G20 summit held in Johannesburg, South Africa, hosted by President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa from the 22nd to the 23rd of November 2025. Over the course of the last few days, I held a series of high-level engagements with international institutions and world leaders with the overarching aim of securing Jamaica's interests in three key areas. advancing the country's recovery and reconstruction agenda following recent disaster events, mobilizing development and climate resilience financing, and reinforcing Jamaica's engagement with global governance institutions and the Global South. In support of this agenda, I met with the Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund and the President of the World Bank, sharing Jamaica's latest damage and loss assessments and presenting the recovery and reconstruction plan to the global finance community. During the Johannesburg meeting, I held productive talks with the following leaders, among others, President Cyril Ramaphosa, the summit host, and he affirmed support for Jamaica through their own disaster fund. I met with President Emmanuel Macron of France, in which we discussed deepening our cooperation and support for Jamaica's financing bid. I met with President Lula da Silva of Brazil, where we discussed possible agricultural support and support for Jamaica's relief and recovery initiatives. I met with Prime Minister Mark Carney of Canada, and I want to say here that Canada, through Prime Minister Carney, has taken a special interest in the financing of the reconstruction. It is a very technical area and an area in which we will require the support of many leaders who sit on the boards of the various international financial institutions where they have representatives on these boards. So when you present your package, you want to have global support from international leaders so that your request, your package of support can be approved by the boards of these international financial institutions. So that was the general thrust of meeting with the world leaders, to garner support for Jamaica's bid for financing. I met with Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India, noting our cultural and historical ties, and we also discussed support for Jamaica's agricultural sector and fisheries sector. And of course, all of these countries that we have discussed all assisted immediately as the hurricane struck. So we also expressed our thanks and gratitude to them. I met with the Vice President of Nigeria, and Nigeria committed to assist in our relief and recovery effort. And as I said, I met with Ajay Banga, and Ajay Banga is the president of the World Bank, and Kristalina Georgieva of the IMF. Interestingly as well, I had a good meeting with Tedros Ghebreyesus, the Director General of the World Health Organization. We discussed the public health situation in Jamaica as a result of the pandemic, and they have agreed to mobilize emergency resources for Jamaica. I also participated in multilateral sessions of the G20 summit, which was focused on disaster risk financing, climate transition, and debt sustainability, key areas for our CARICOM region. Notably, the summit's declaration emphasized disaster resilience, strengthening the international coordination for response to climate-related and natural disasters. Mr. Speaker, in those arrangements, I reiterated Jamaica's strong position. In those engagements, I reiterated Jamaica's strong position. We have already mobilized approximately $650 million US dollars, that's about 100 billion Jamaican dollars, for immediate available resources via our pre-planned and pre-arranged disaster risk financing framework. At the same time, we have access to more than $500 million through the rapid financing facility of the IMF. But I emphasized that our multi-year reconstruction effort will require substantially more support than these amounts alone can deliver. As I said earlier, the loss is estimated at $8.8 billion. However, a portion of that would be private losses covered by insurance. It is estimated, therefore, that there should still be a gap, that there would still be a gap of approximately $5 billion US dollars, which the government would need to fund. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, additional resources would need to be accessed. So, just to summarize that point for the listening public, the damage assessed is 8.8. Insurance may cover 3.8 thereabout of it. There is still $5 billion, rounded figures, that would need to be funded. We have approximately 1 billion, thereabout, 1 billion that we can allocate towards the reconstruction. So we still need to find 4 billion. That's the window. And how do you get this? You have to, $4 billion US dollars. You have to get out there in the international community. You have to bring your case to the world leaders. You have to ensure that the international capital markets see that you're not going to only rely on their resources, that you can also have even greater support from the international financial institutions, and that helps to make a stronger case. And that is what we have done. The G20 summit, the G20 summit was a convenient place to meet all the leaders in one event. We therefore formally requested the international community, including the IMF, the World Bank, bilateral development partners, climate finance platforms, and multilateral development banks, to assemble a reconstruction support package that scales with Jamaica's ambitions and needs. This includes concessional loans and grants earmarked for resilient infrastructure, sustainable agriculture, including poultry and dairy, citrus, and hydroponics, and for the automation of our agricultural sector, for debt service relief and restructuring options to protect our fiscal space and sustain growth, and technical assistance through technology transfer for agriculture and other industries that we're seeking to develop, and for the risk insurance and contingency financing instruments linked to climate change and natural disaster, an area which Jamaica is the prime example of how this is done and utilized. This mission underscores several strategic imperatives for Jamaica, and by engaging proactively in the G20 and on the margins with major partner countries and institutions, Jamaica is asserting its voice in global economic governance, especially as a middle-income, small island developing state facing climate risks. Our emphasis on disaster resilience, sustainable agriculture, aligns neatly with Jamaica's stated vision of leveraging technology, AI, and automation within our agricultural sector, but not just within agriculture, within logistics, within manufacturing, in everything that we are doing. And so we are, Mr. Speaker, positioning Jamaica as the country that is embracing of technology and making ourselves not just the poster child of fiscal resilience, but the poster child of economic resilience in the face of a disaster. Our bilateral talks with Brazil, India, France, South Africa, and Nigeria signals Jamaica's intent to broaden its external partnership beyond traditional donors. And I want to say here, Mr. Speaker, that South-South cooperation is something that Jamaica is pursuing intentionally. I've had discussions with my brother and friend from Rwanda, President Kagame, and he will be sending an advanced team to come and see how they can assist. I suspect that the result of that will be a corps of engineers that will come from Rwanda to assist with our reconstruction. The same thing will happen with Ghana. I had a very good talk with the president of Ethiopia. As I mentioned, the Vice President of Nigeria. We are, Mr. Speaker, building close relations with Africa. Yes. Because that the G20 was held in Africa is significant, very significant. It shows Africa emerging and Africa being very important to the future of the global economy. But, Madam Speaker, we should note that from a foreign policy point of view, we have always maintained that it is best for Jamaica to always be at the table, to always have a voice. And just to be clear, Madam Speaker, not to be at some table or at a subset. We want to be at the main table where the global decisions are made. And Madam Speaker, it should be noted, it is sometimes, Mr. Speaker, it should be noted, it is sometimes underlooked and undervalued that this is the second time that Jamaica has been invited to the G20. Jamaica has been
Mr. Speaker, the member's time for speaking has expired. We ask that it be extended for 10 minutes to complete the presentation.
The request is on the floor. Those in favor? Those against, the ayes have it. You may continue, Prime Minister. Mike, please.
Mr. Speaker, you know, it is oftentimes not looked upon as being of any great import. You know, one member I overheard saying, when God South Africa, he should be here marshalling the recovery. And I shake my head. I shake my head. And the reason why is that I understand how our electorate and how even some of our intellectuals will think about it. And we didn't take the decision of going lightly. In fact, Mr. Speaker, up until a couple of days before, the decision was that I would not be going. But we discussed it and we debated it, and the offer was even extended for us to attend. And we decided that, given that that was the case, we attended. But I want to say this, Mr. Speaker, and it's very important to say. The measure of the recovery is not going to be in how fast you deliver the package of food. The measure of the recovery is going to be how fast you return electricity and water. How you kept the population safe from diseases and health risks and mentally positive in outlook. But the ultimate measure is going to be how you rebuild forward better. Not that you take up a shack that was destroyed in the hurricane and build back another shack. That is not what is going to be measured as success. And to do that, the time of the Prime Minister is not best used handing out a bag of this and a bag of that. The time of the Prime Minister is best used mobilizing the international community to deliver the billions of dollars that is going to be necessary to rebuild the country. So for those people who want to create mischief and mislead people, I leave my judgment to the reconstruction. So this week, there you go. So in the weeks ahead, the government will prepare and circulate to all partners the detailed Jamaica Reconstruction and Resilience Program document, including costing, phasing, governance structures, environmental and social safeguards, and expected impact, that is in terms of job productivity, technology adoption. We'll convene a partner donor roundtable virtually and then in person to formalize the international support package with a view to securing commitments by the end of the first quarter of 2026. And then we will commence with the first initial tranche of early action projects under our framework to demonstrate momentum, accountability, and value for money to our partners as well as to the Jamaican people, and to ensure that Jamaica's disaster risk financing architecture is fully leveraged and our fiscal framework remains prudent, and that all assistance aligned with our national development priorities and climate resilience goal. Mr. Speaker, I wish to express gratitude to all the Jamaican delegation members and government officials who supported the work in South Africa. I also wish to thank the members of the diaspora who I got the opportunity to meet in South Africa. And let me also extend gratitude to all of our development partners and international institutions for their engagement. Most importantly, I wish to assure the House and the Jamaican people that this mission generated significant dividends, commitments, committed attention to the highest level of global governance to Jamaica's needs, specific bilateral affirmations of partnership, and tangible forward momentum on Jamaica's key strategic priorities. I now commend this statement to the House and look forward to a collective move forward to resilience, prosperity, and an inclusive Jamaica.
Prime Minister, thank you for the statement. I have a couple of. In relation to the 650 million that has already been mobilized from the insurances and other sources, could you give me a breakdown of that 650 million? I know CRIF is about 90, the CAT bond about 150. What I'd like to know whether the balance of that money reflects insurances or whether those reflect any loans that we have taken from any other multilateral partners. I know the 500 million you refer to is an IMF drawdown, which comes from the Rapid Financing Facility. With the 1.15 that we have in hand, could you indicate how much of that we have spent in the recovery effort so far, and what are some of the immediate priorities? For example, we know many people have lost livelihoods in the tourism industry. We know SMEs have been decimated. What is the plan to provide immediate relief to those particular stakeholders where if you don't provide the relief now, the problem is going to be a bigger problem 6 months, 9 months, 12 months down the road? Secondly, and your colleague may be able to answer this better, are we receiving the full 150 million from the CAT bond, or are there any fees or charges related to it, which would maybe 10%? I don't know what the figure is, but are there monies deducted from that to give a net value to the Jamaican people? And then I take note of the plan, and I don't think anybody on this side would have any criticism of your trip to South Africa to lobby for funding, and I don't think anybody said that. But from the preliminary discussions that you would have had with your multilateral partners, have you any indication at this stage, accepting that you wouldn't have something firm, of commitments that would help to close that gap of approximately $4 billion? And then for the Minister of Finance, what would be your projection? You're not the minister, but we haven't gotten a statement from her. We know we're at about 62% GDP. We had to expect to get down to 60 before the end of the fiscal year. You're obviously going to have to borrow. What is your projection in the short term in terms of what you anticipate our debt to GDP will rise to in the short term, and then over time, what you think, what level we would be at? And finally, you had indicated a couple of weeks ago we're going to relax the fiscal rules, which nobody would have an argument with. Have we begun or started that process, formally submitting the report to the Independent Fiscal Commission, etc., so that that process is underway, and we have formally made the overtures to the respective multilateral agencies in relation to seeking funding?
Member from St. Andrews Southeast, you mentioned in your presentation a new creature in our our fiscal landscape called the Fiscal Commissioner. And the Fiscal Commissioner examines all our statements and everything that the government puts forward for its credibility and whether or not it is sound. And they will make pronouncements. So we on this side have enforced a particular discipline. And that is when it comes to speaking on some of these fiscal issues, we allow the Minister of Finance to speak first. The Minister of Finance will come to Parliament Tuesday next week with some of the things that you have just asked. For example, you have asked about whether or not we have started the process to change the fiscal rules. Yes, it has begun, and the Minister will come with the necessary legislative changes that are necessary. And that process of bringing our supplementary and having it reviewed by the Fiscal Commissioner, that is underway. So a supplementary will come next week. So I don't want to answer questions that ought rightfully to be presented by the Minister of Finance at that time. I would say to you, though, that you have asked questions regarding, you've asked a question regarding what we have gotten in terms of the catastrophe bond and these things. The catastrophe bond, I understand that it's a full payment, but there are usually some small fees and so attached. What that is, I couldn't say, I don't know now, but the Minister of Finance, I will have her undertake to present that when she presents next week. Our fiscal resilience plan starts with savings, which we put into our National Disaster Risk Fund, then contingencies, which we set aside from each budget, then insurance, for example, the CRIF, then our catastrophe bond, which we have gotten a full payout from, and from the CRIF, Minister, you remind me what we got from the CRIF? About 91 billion. And then we have access to prearranged financing, essentially prearranged debt that we can get at concessionary rates. And that would come from our partners, the IMF, the World Bank, and the IDB. From the IDB, there are some prearranged funds that can go up to as much as about 450 million, 400 million, thereabout. We will not be able to get all of it because some of it is reliant on some triggers being met. Those triggers have not been met in this disaster. The CAF, which is the Central American Development Bank, they have given us a grant, but they have said that they would be prepared to give us financing as well. So my visit to the G20 to meet with all of these leaders all in one place was to secure funding over and above what we have already secured through the various systems that I have mentioned, from savings to prearranged debt, because the extent of the damage surpasses what we had prearranged and what we have set aside in savings and contingencies and insurance. So we need to go to the international community, make our case, garner friends, get influence in these international financial entities to look at Jamaica's case specially or give special consideration so that we can get access to more financing. That's the essence of it.
Just a follow-up. Could you indicate how much we have raised from the, I think it's the Support Jamaica website, in terms of funding, and whether we have been using those funds to deal with the ongoing responding to the emergencies, etc., and whether those funds are managed through the Ministry of Finance or an appropriate government agency, and whether the same rules that apply in terms of procurement, etc., for normal government-related funds apply to those that would be raised through the Support Jamaica website.
Technically, all the funds raised should go into our National Disaster Risk Fund. Some of them go to ODPEM, go to the account, to the ODPEM account. But all the funds are under the management and supervision of the regular fiscal and financial rules that pertain to any funding that the government of Jamaica has. The question is whether or not, so your question is, did they go into the central consolidated fund or did they go into a special fund? If they went into the consolidated fund, then they are at the disposal of the government. If they go into the disaster risk fund, then they can only be spent under certain conditions and for certain purposes. And so any fund that is related to disasters goes into the disaster risk fund, unless either the donor or the person lending specifies that it can be for budgetary support, which I haven't seen much of that recently. Now, the question that you're asking is, have we spent any of those funds on the relief effort? My understanding is that we have first utilized what we have in the contingency, meaning what we have set aside in the budget, and then what we have in the fund itself. So in other words, we are only spending so far Jamaica's money because that's immediate and you know what it is. The others it keeps coming. One day you hear it's X amount, then by tomorrow more comes in. So we'll soon know what the full picture is. I believe the ODPEM director at some point would have given some updates. I don't have those figures with me. Yeah, but I will undertake, member, that at the next time that I speak publicly, I will have the figures available as to exactly what has been raised from all the efforts. A global figure, I'll make those available. And just to be clear, Mr. Speaker, I know there's a lot of talk about government getting money and not using it, and we have to be so careful that these kinds of careless talk. Now, for the people, Mr. Speaker, I'm about to say something, and I just want to be clear. For the people who are saying it, and gaining influence on persons who don't understand, it is dangerous. Because, there is a public that believes that somehow we sit here and we are trying to somehow take away money that has come for the relief of the people. Let me say this clearly, Mr. Speaker. It would be morally reprehensible for anyone to be using any government resources in any way that has been given or borrowed for relief or any other action to mitigate the damage of this hurricane for any personal or private gain. And if there is any such thing happening, I don't have to wait for any other entity to ferret it out or find it. I will find it myself. Let it be on the record, Mr. Speaker, that this is not the first disaster that this government has had to address. There was never a question about the administration of resources for Hurricane Beryl. No donor said, what I gave, I don't know how it was accounted for. Let it be clear that for the entire administration of the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, where the government of Jamaica executed the largest social protection program in the history of Jamaica. There wasn't even one question of misappropriation of funds. So I want to be clear, Mr. Speaker, that those persons who wish to tarnish myself, tarnish the government, you're tarnishing Jamaica with a lie. I am not worried so much, Mr. Speaker, because wherever I travel and I meet with the international community, you know what they say? They say, you have done an amazing job. And I'm not joking, Mr. Speaker. I don't have to say it about myself. The international officers who come here representing the international agencies, they go, and I don't ask them to, they go and say it publicly. Direct contradiction of the nonsense that some people are saying. So I know that it hasn't done any damage at that level, because they know, they see, they understand, they know the systems in place, and they know what would have happened in other countries. And they have confidence in the government. But some of them who are saying these things are people who know better, and they mislead. They mislead the people. So let me be clear in this parliament that this government will manage this disaster without any form of corruption, misdirection, maladministration, malfeasance, misfeasance. We are going to manage this disaster with the highest level of probity and integrity and accountability. And it is necessary to do this, Mr. Speaker, because the scale of what we need in support from the international community can only be gotten if the international community feels that we have the institutional framework to ensure that whatever resources are made available are properly used. So one can only say that those people who are spreading those rumors are determined to bring down Jamaica. They do not support Jamaica. So as I stand here, Mr. Speaker, my statement is also a warning to us. Let's be clear. It is a warning to the government. But it is my duty also to dismiss and dispel falsehood.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have really just one single question for the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, are you aware that your statement that the government will prepare and circulate to all partners the detailed Jamaica Reconstruction and Resilience Program document, including costings, phasing, governance structure, environmental and social safeguards, and all of that detail, will ring hollow if you do not ensure that there is indeed a coordinated and joined up approach to what it's doing? Or persons will begin to ask, as they have started asking, why is it this early relief program has been so chaotic, disjointed, and partisan in how it has been carried out?
Mr. Speaker, what we have seen here, and the question asked, is a classic case of bringing the false notion onto a public platform. I can say here, Mr. Speaker, I can say here, and the member from Southwest, I call her my neighbor and my sister. And I try not to be harsh. I try not to be harsh. But she's saying that she can manage it. Mr. Speaker, the member from St. Andrew Southwest is not an expert in disaster recovery. The experts in disaster recovery have spoken, and they have spoken publicly on Jamaican media, on Jamaican radio. They have written documents, and they have said quite the opposite. In fact, they have commended Jamaica as a small island developing state for its response. The persons who peddle this falsehood, Mr. Speaker, seem to conveniently ignore that Hurricane Melissa was one of the strongest hurricanes to have hit Jamaica, not just in the Atlantic, but globally. It is in the top 3 strongest hurricanes. No other hurricane has done the level of damage to Jamaica in its recorded history than this one. None. Within hours after Hurricane Melissa, I picked up the phone and I called the chief, the acting chief of defense staff, the head of the NWA, the minister responsible for works, and I said to them, get the airport open.
11 o'clock that night.
They were out there in the night checking the road to make sure, checking with the necessary authorities to make sure that planes could land. The following day, we were able to open the airport. Mr. Speaker, in a few days, hold on, in a few days, we were able to open the Sangster International Airport. In 72 hours, precisely. Now, let me be clear on this, Mr. Speaker. Let me be clear. Roads were blocked. Communities cut off. I don't like to talk about what the equipment capability of the JDF is. Well, we don't have enough helicopters. We just don't. It took 3 days for us to get additional airlift from our American friends, and I want to thank them for making the airlift available. 3 days. When I landed in Black River the day after, I sent a team by ground. That team could not pass through Holland Bamboo to get to me. When I called to say where they were still with machetes trying to cut their way through. JDF was there with them trying to cut their way through. Never forget it, a lady said she walked 20 miles. I saw her coming in to Black River, and she said a neighbor of hers was out in the storm and a wall fell on him and he died. And we asked JDF, as soon as you're able to mobilize, go and find this body. I mean, I would say we had about 5 operational helicopters. Now, you think about having just 5 helicopters 3 days after. How are you going to distribute that to deal with all the problems?
Yes.
The people who peddle that are unreasonable, and they are lying. And they don't need Jamaica anymore. Now, Mr. Speaker, I am the first one to say that in the immediate response, there was a scramble. We don't deny that because we have never had this before. Institutions, funny enough, Mr. Speaker, the members from Westmoreland made a very strong case that the disaster response was slow and ineffective. And I reflected on it. I did, because every criticism, I take it and I look at it, because if I am wrong, I am the first to admit. In the same way that when I looked at the response, I said in the first 3 days, we were all just trying to run around and trying to get things done. And you know why, Mr. Speaker? Because the member will tell you that the disaster manager for the parish fell ill, had a stroke, and that key person in the coordination of the response was not available. But I wouldn't only use that as a response, as an excuse. There were persons who lost their roofs who were cut off, had no telecommunication. We couldn't find them. So to say that our response was slow, it's not just a lie, it's unfair. Let's make another point, Mr. Speaker. The Jamaica Defense Force stood up an operation, and we had to make strategic decisions about how we are going to use our resources. Strategic decision number one. If there are people who want to come to Jamaica, who have the experience, who have the equipment, and who have the know-how to do this thing, let them go quickly into the areas. So I see people saying, I don't see nobody from the government. The only person I see is from the Lacovia police station. How you think the aid got there? You think they just swam into Jamaica? The government opened the airport. The government cleaned the road. The government escorted them. Don't talk nonsense. To ensure that all the people who you see out there who want to give aid to Jamaica, that they are able to do it. You think they come here without ensuring that there are security guarantees? Who you think gives them the security guarantees? You think the stock that they have just move automatically, just materialize where they are? How many convoys you see moving with the security forces carrying them through? Don't talk nonsense about there was no government presence. I want to give commendation to the police. The JCF needs special recognition in this disaster, because with roofs blown off, no electricity, they stood up. When I went to Black River, the police station was destroyed, nothing, they didn't have any electricity. One of my first order of business was to secure generators. I gave 4 generators to police stations. I don't go out and make this public because that's not my role or my job, but I did it just to make sure